So the general idea of what we're going to cover with folks here in step-by-step detail is showing you how you can actually get to the end result, which most people want with real estate, which is monthly passive cash flow, but to circumvent around the traditional path and show you how to control other people's properties without even having to assume any ownership and potentially not even have to assume any financial risk to do it.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Matthew Pillmore here, self-proclaimed cash flow king. I've been spending the majority of my career figuring out various solutions and strategies to maximize cash flow. It's really the number one priority that I focus on to create wealth. It's served me very well. I've been able to live completely financially independent now for the last couple of years, even being able to take an extended trip for 6 months last year in an RV full time. It's been amazing. And listen, I couldn't sleep last night, much like I'm sure my guests today aren't able to with their newborn who's joining us on the video. And it's just because I have so many different cool things that are going on right now. And so my mind was racing. And so I dipped into Facebook briefly to attempt to sort of calm my brain, as if that's what Facebook does, I guess. And I went into the private coaching group of the BNB Bootcamp, which is who we're going to be chatting with today. And I see this post. It says, in March of 2021, we bought our first condo to turn into a short-term rental. I quickly found out I had no idea what I was doing. Sounds familiar to me too. I turned to podcasts and YouTube for a crash course after a couple of weeks of little to no progress, started researching coaching classes. Michael and Katrina resonated with me with our similar experience in the e-commerce world. After their course, we quickly ramped up to 6 units. We bounced into some other masterminds and ended Q3 of this year with over 35 units operating. Today, we've closed on our first hotel, a 30-unit mixed-use hotel in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. 19 months ago, I started on this journey alone. Today, I have countless friends, business partners, and mentors, but it all started with 2 people that helped me build my foundation. Thanks, Michael and Katrina. Wouldn't have been able to do this, make it this far without you. That is very similar to what I had first discovered on Facebook that led me to Michael and Katrina. And I've gone on record now for the last 2 years since first finding them, saying that if I lost everything, the very next income stream that I would build from scratch would be Michael and Katrina's business model, which involves arbitraging or partnering in the short-term rental or Airbnb space. And there are tons of reasons why that is. And mostly it involves very low risk with unlimited upside potential, which is always something I'm going to be looking closely at. And when I first stumbled into them 2 years ago, they were already making about $655,000 a year in profit doing what they taught the guy that we just walked through is doing. And I'll link that first video that we recorded together in the description for you guys, showing them discussing their business in detail. So that'll also be in the description for you. Since then, their profits have soared above the multi-seven figure mark. And hearing about their success and knowing that they have this formula for achieving results like these. And I also kept hearing wild success stories from mutual clients that work with both my coaching, my financial coaching program, and them. We decided to launch our business earlier this year following their program. And after less than a year, it looks like we may now hit 35 doors ourselves by the end of the year, 7 of which we actually just landed within the last 2 weeks. And by the end of 2023, our current trajectory will actually have myself and my 2 business partners each earning over $100,000 a month in income. And that is by far the fastest that I've managed to build a 7-figure business. It required no credit. Aside from the cost of their coaching, it required no money out of pocket, and it didn't require us to reinvent any wheels or any technology. Everything was supported. Now, I'm going to give you the email address. You're welcome to reach out and inquire about more information regarding their coaching. It's BNB Bootcamp at VIPfinancialeducation.com, right? BNB Bootcamp at VIPfinancialeducation.com. Make sure you put your contact information in the body of the email, or don't expect to get any follow-up from them. They'll generally send out some form of a questionnaire so that they can gather some basic details from you and see whether or not this is a fit for you. It is not a fit for everybody, just like every business on the planet. So inquire, find out if it's a good fit. But this is truly one of the lowest risk business models I've found with the highest upside potential involved with it. And it is something I remain as excited about, if not more excited than ever about. So I asked Michael and Katrina to jump on today because A, I was fired up about this Facebook post, and B, I said, listen, why don't we just try to get some basic fundamental explanations out there so people have a better understanding of exactly what this is once again. And furthermore, can we do some screen sharing that sort of shows a walkthrough of A to Z, really demonstrating how these arbitrage or partnership deals unfold and maybe some of the numbers as well, so that you guys as viewers today will be left with some valuable resources that you could either take and run with yourself, or maybe like this individual, you'll find that it's a lot easier to have support and a blueprint to run with versus trying to do this all on your own. And you'll decide to send an email. Again, BNB Bootcamp at VIPfinancialeducation.com will be how you get that support. Now, one thing I do want to mention before we get Michael and Katrina on today is the prices for their coaching are expected to go up again. They do offer us a deep discount for our viewers because of the relationship we've had for the last couple of years. So they will be knocking a considerable amount off of that price, which brings it down to just under $10,000 to get involved with them right now. But they are making enhancements to the program as we speak, and that is expected to sort of relaunch in the beginning of the year and will be more expensive. So if you're expecting to get in, let's make 2023 your best year ever. This is something that you can really get off the ground running in, and there's still tons of sand in the sandbox for everybody to make a lot of money in this space. So Michael and Katrina, welcome back. Thank you for being here as usual.
Great to see you again, Matthew.
Yeah, it's awesome seeing, and thank you for that background as well and full explanation. Like, kudos to you with growing that large of a business in such a short amount of time. Like, it really shows how you can start from scratch and just build to 35 units in such a short amount of time. That's incredible. The scalability. So awesome job.
Yeah, I don't think we got our first door until May, so we're pretty happy with it so far. But at this point, I'm just thrilled for you guys. You've got a new member of the family. It's very exciting times. Brand new parents, first time parents. Look at that little angel right there. She's joining us for today's episode. So hopefully she'll chime in at some point and let us know what she's thinking.
Well, she actually hasn't gone down for the last couple of hours, so the timing seems to be working beautifully today.
She's passed out.
Yeah.
Parenthood's so easy, can't you see?
Obviously, it's on the internet. So
on the internet must be real.
Yeah.
She was wide awake when we got on camera, and you know, this is a typical history of mine. I generally will put people to sleep pretty fast on these videos. So
I think it's just your soothing voice talking about cash flow, and that just
yeah, it's a double-edged sword. So so all right, guys. So let's go ahead and just I've given you screen control. I want you guys to share a little bit about this business model once again for those that are maybe watching this for the first time, or it's been some time since they've thought about it in the past. Let's talk a little bit about what makes this so special. Maybe the difference between arbitrage and partnerships, which is where you guys have really carved out a niche for yourself. Tell us a little bit about what those each are and what the biggest differences are.
Sure. Well, I think before we dive into kind of, an A to Z plan of exactly how you can get into this business, step by step, and just really show you all the different mechanics of it, let's just kind of take a step back and just talk high level as far as what the opportunity actually is. Now, for a lot of people, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that real estate, by its nature is one of the most surefire ways, if you know what you're doing, that you could become financially independent and potentially a millionaire with time. The challenge that most people have when they try to get into real estate is that, depending on the model that you follow, tends to be very capital intensive, tends to require the use of large amounts of credit, and it takes a very long time in order to see the return on investment in terms of monthly income and cash flow. So being former landlords ourselves, we knew what that challenge looked like. We knew there had to be a better way to get to the goal and outcome that we wanted to achieve. But ultimately, we just knew we were on the slow boat to China before we discovered the model that we're going to talk about here today.
Yeah. So when we started, we had full-time 9-to-5 jobs, and our whole goal was just to have cash flow that was independent from our 9-to-5s, right? And it was honestly a side hustle, just building and growing and seeing how it was. It kind of just caught fire just because we wanted to get into this cash flow, but we didn't want to purchase all these units, right? So we're like, how can we do this without owning property, without any of the cash coming in? And that's when we stumbled across rental arbitrage. And then within our own business, we created our own partnership model and management style from there.
So the general idea of what we're going to cover with folks here in step-by-step detail is showing you how you can actually get to the end result, which most people want with real estate, which is monthly passive cash flow, but to circumvent around the traditional path and show you how to control other people's properties without even having to assume any ownership and potentially not even have to assume any financial risk to do it, which I know sounds like absolutely mind-blowing and crazy, but
this is our business. This is what we do. This is what Matt does as well.
So you ready to dive into it, Matt? And we'll give the viewers here kind of a step-by-step plan.
Absolutely. Let's see it.
All right, let's dive into this. So first things first, before you can get into the short-term rental industry, you first have to understand the rules of the sandbox in which you want to play in. Okay, so step one is you just want to hop onto Google. You want to do a little bit of background research and understand what are the local laws and rules and ordinances and bylaws in your area so that you can understand what it's going to take in order for you to set up your own shop and get your business up and running. Okay. Once you get the green light on that, and once you understand what that looks like, then you want to start going online and start looking at what properties are available in your area. Okay.
So right now, what Michael's looking at is an opportunity to do rental arbitrage. So going out there, looking for a place to rent or lease for about a year, could be 2 years, long-term, and then changing that over onto the short-term rental platform. So flipping it, essentially, getting it set up, and then you're making money off of nightly rents from guests coming in, and you're capturing that difference. So if something like this house, 4-bed, 2-bath house here is $1,300, like the very first one here. Mm-hmm. And if you are making $4,000, you're going to have $4,000 minus, $1,300 plus some utilities. Like you're going to be making between $2,000-$3,000 a month off of something like that. That's rental arbitrage. That's the difference. That's the first model that we're talking about.
So
That's
you're basically getting the landlord's permission to sublet the property, and you're able to keep the margin between what your nightly rates are through short-term renting it and hosting the property and what you pay the landlord for the long-term rental price.
Correct. And the deal that you're making with them is extremely ethical because you're actually solving a lot of problems that landlords have by dealing with long-term tenants. So first off, you're making the arrangement incredibly passive for them because they don't have to worry about, finding new tenants all the time. You're going to be the last tenant they ever have to worry about. You're going to keep their property in incredible condition because you're going to be cleaning it after every single guest, and you're going to be taking care of all the minor maintenance. So landlord gets paid on time, property gets looked after, and the best benefit is you're not a pain in the ass to work with, right? So it's kind of win-win-win for the landlord in terms of what they're looking for and helps them accomplish their goals. Okay. Now, obviously here we got Facebook Marketplace up. That's one avenue you can go to. Another one that we particularly like, just for some different functionalities that it has, we like to use a website like hotpads.com. And one of the reasons why we like it is you can actually go down and filter for rent by owner. Mm-hmm. Now, in our particular business model, it is definitely recommended, and it's a lot easier if you can target owner managed listings right off the bat. Depending on the area, though, you might have to be dealing with management companies. There's a little bit more finessing that's involved if you're going down that path. The pitch isn't really all that different. It's just really more in how you're positioning it to that person in order to get them in touch with the owner.
Yeah, so going on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, HotPads, like just being able to actually talk to the owner and have those discussions with them. That's where we just started out, even in our own business, to get the first, I think it was 5 or 6 listings that we had with just rental arbitrage. So going out there, signing a lease agreement, setting it up with furniture, and then getting it online, start taking guests.
Now, to clarify with that, there's obviously a higher level, a higher upfront cost to the business owner, because in this, I'm presumably spending a first month, last month security deposit, just like a traditional lease. I'm probably purchasing the furnishings and decor to get it guest ready for the short-term rental side of it. So I imagine that it wouldn't be unrealistic to expect a $10,000 to $20,000 outlay on any given property. Obviously, a far cry from coming up with a 20% down payment if I were to try and acquire my own short-term rental. So given the fact that I can oftentimes rely on alternative sources of that, meaning debt weapons we teach about here on the channel, whether it be a home equity line of credit, an unsecured business line of credit, an unsecured personal line of credit, maybe even in some cases, low to 0% introductory credit cards to make some of the purchases for the furnishings, or even low to 0% introductory promotions through furniture companies and so forth. I would guess that you can probably still do a lot of it out of pocket, but I'm still going to have to come to the table with that seed capital, regardless of where it comes from. True?
Absolutely true. And I mean, when we talk to new students in our training, we give all the various options that exist. So you can either fund it with, cash reserves or any, liquidity that you have on hand, or you might have to tap into some, debt weapons, as you say, as just different alternative funding sources to get it going. Now, in our case, that's how we started our business. We actually started our entire company off a $20,000 line of credit because, full disclosure, we didn't really have a lot of money when we first got this started.
Yeah.
So,
and that was to get about 5 or 6 rental arbitrage deals. So we, that was our debt weapon that we used off the beginning. And then we just reinvested the cash flow from there. We haven't had to outlay any more of our own funds to build up our business from then.
Yeah. So the reason why we started that way, to be totally honest with you, Matt, is that we honestly just didn't know a better way to get into the industry. Now we're going to talk about, another model that you can pursue, the partnership model, which can literally take your financial investment into acquiring new units down to zero. And we'll explain more on how that works a little bit later on in the video. But just to kind of keep folks on track here. So again, we want to start doing some homework. We want to start finding, prospective listings that are in your area, get some familiarity, understand what properties are actually renting for. So when you're doing this, it's really important to stay organized. Okay. You want to keep track of which websites you're targeting these on, what address, beds, baths, are they furnished, what's the rent, all this basic information here and this is something we give as a resource inside of our training. Now, if you want to speed up the research process, you can use a tool. Once you understand what properties rent for on the long-term market, you want to get a gauge of what the profit potential is in the short-term market. Because again, if we're going to arbitrage, you're going to be selling nights at a nightly rate in order to offset the cost you're paying on a monthly basis. Okay. So a couple ways you can do that. If you want to use a tool like AirDNA, it will scrape data from other comparable short-term rental listings. You can hop on, you can use a tool like the Rentalizer, just simply plug in the property's address, number of beds and baths. It'll give you a rough idea in terms of average nightly rate, average occupancy. If you want to circumvent this even faster, you can even buy a subscription, look at the top properties in your area, and see if you can find properties that are similar so that you can understand, you can just kind of go to the front of the line and just kind of shortcut that entire process. If you're on a tight budget and you don't want to go ahead and purchase all these different softwares, rather than relying on a tool like this, you could even just simply go on the platform itself, Airbnb, and just start looking at other comparable listings of homes in and around that area to get an idea of what other people are charging and how booked up they are based on what their calendars look like, right? So you can look for the next month, the next 60 days, 90 days, and just get a general overall idea of what the future looks like if you were to get into this type of business and use that kind of model. Okay. After you do your homework, this is where you want to start getting on the phone. You want to start sending out contacts to prospective landlords, and you want to try to start getting meetings in person if possible to essentially pitch them on the benefits of working with you rather than going with what they know and renting to a long-term tenant. Okay. Once you secure the deal, and we show people how to do this, quite easily inside the BNB Bootcamp, then you got to get busy. You got to start hustling. You got to start assembling, furnishings. You got to start putting your team together because you don't want to have to be the one that does all of this yourself. So we definitely encourage folks to hop on websites like TaskRabbit. You want to try to find local handymen, local movers, people that can help you get the place set up so you're not having to do all the grunt work and all the heavy lifting on your own. Okay,
so you have to have a handyman for sure, but also cleaners. So you have the cleaners ready to go because once your listing is live, you have to be able to be prepared with handyman, cleaners, start taking guests right away. So the turnovers happen really quick. So majority of our students, we try and get them to have a place up and running within 30 days. So our program right now is a 4-month program. Within 30 days, we want a place up and running, generating income and getting going. So we have to be prepared with all these elements on the back end to make sure we take guests right away. And it happens quick. You get a listing online, it usually goes live within 24 hours and then bookings can start coming in really quick. So that's why it's important to be prepared on all these different areas and team members of your business.
And it's really important because we want to show people how to build an actual business where it's something that once it's up and running, once it's taking income, once you have the right team members, processes, and systems in place, it's something that you can genuinely walk away from and it can continue to work for you rather than you just simply trading hours for dollars. Okay. Now, just to give an example of this to the viewers watching this video right now, let's walk through a couple of properties that we have right now in our portfolio and give you an idea of what some of the earning potential is between some of the different models. So the first one we're going to take a look at is a rental arbitrage deal. And I picked this one in particular because I want to emphasize with people that it's okay to start small in this. Like if you don't have a lot of capital and you don't have a lot of resources, this will give you a little bit of hope, okay? So here is a 2-bed, 1-bath basement suite that is in, and it's funny, you might not think there's a lot of money in basement suites. We have about almost 20 of these in our portfolio just because they're very common in our area.
It's about a third of our portfolio is basement suites, which sounds pretty nuts, but it does incredibly well. So, go where the cash is, right? And if it works, then just multiply what works.
Okay, so I like to call these our block and tackle listings because they're not super sexy, but they're just consistent income and money generators. So this listing in particular, we actually got this set up. It's actually a property with my next door neighbor. He had built a basement suite. So we signed a lease with him for $1,000 a month to control this property. So this is inside of our actual QuickBooks, and this gives a really solid breakdown of not only income, but also the expenses that are coming off of this property. A lot of people, a lot of other Airbnb gurus, they'll just simply show you the top line level earnings. They don't really get into granular detail. So this just kind of takes you under the hood to show you a little bit more of what you can actually expect if you're to get into this type of business and this type of business model, okay? So again, this is a rental arbitrage deal. We are renting this basement suite for $1,000 a month, which you can very clearly see right here. Rent or lease of buildings, very consistent across the board. Now, January, it's one of the slowest months of the year, really, okay? So that month, we didn't really make a whole lot, okay? But you can see it starts to add up very quickly over time here, okay? So, in February, we did $1,000. This one, we did 645, 480, 1,500. A little bit lighter month here, 1,500, 1,000, 1,400. So far in the year, we're at $8,300, okay? In terms of furnishings, this place cost us less than, I think, $4,000 or $5,000 to set up. So to get $8,300 back after all expenses on a $5,000 investment. So plus with with the rent, it was around $6,000. Not a bad rate of return, especially on something that's relatively low risk, because at a very low lease like this, it's pretty difficult to lose money on it. Right now, again, it's not the sexiest deal. It's not it's not going to change your life overly, but for a lot of people, an extra $1,000, $1,500 a month, that can make a substantial difference in someone's budget on a monthly basis.
It's a base hit. You get 10 of these, you're sitting at $8,300 a month.
100%. Yeah.
Easily.
And I mean, that's a 6-figure income, right? So now, as I mentioned earlier on the video, when we first got going, we actually didn't know any better of there being an alternative way to get into this industry. So we started with rental arbitrage. We were funding all of our own furnishings. And to be fully transparent, we got to a point where we actually started to run out of capital to expand further. So we were sitting around one day and wondering, well, shoot, we want to be able to grow fast. We want to be able to continue expanding. How are we going to do it? Then we identified, it's like, well, wait a minute. If we could figure out a way to actually not have to sign leases, not have to pay deposits, and not even have to pay for furnishings, what would that look like? And because we asked the question, that's when some of the answers started coming into us. And that's when we really discovered and really honed in what we call our partnership model. Now, I'm going to show you this next property here. So obviously, a little more upscale, right?
A little bit different of a house.
A little bit different, right? But how this deal works is rather than signing a lease with the owner, we actually persuaded them to pay for all of the furnishings, to take on all of the startup costs, and we didn't have to take on any leverage or anything at all in order to get into this deal. In fact, we actually have zero financial investment in this particular property.
And you have to see the background as well of, why a homeowner would do that. Like this particular investor, they don't live in Edmonton. They don't live in the town. They needed someone to take care of it locally. Like we took this from start to finish. We were able to get our designer in here, like monitor the setup, get it all staged and ready, but we still have $0 in on it. So this is how they are able to get the most out of their investment and have it taken care of when they don't even live in the same province. And a lot of our investors don't live in Canada either. So this is really, a whole different level and a whole different model that can work for, the right kind of investor as well.
And the reason why
I just want to clarify for our viewers that this is not a Canada-centric business model. This is something that works whether you're really, you can be almost worldwide, I would imagine. But your focus and most of your clients, I imagine, are North America, right? So US and Canada.
Correct. Yeah. So probably 95% of the folks we work with are actually not Canadian at all. Majority of them are in the United States. So what we like to teach on and focus on with our students is what we like to call evergreen business principles. So it wouldn't be very helpful or relevant if it only worked in one area and not another area, right? Now, in this particular case, a lot of folks might be asking, well, why the heck would someone want to do that? And because we're able to help them accomplish their goals with this property. So they wanted to get into short-term rentals themselves, but they just simply didn't want to do the work. They didn't want to handle the management. They don't want to talk to guests. They don't want to handle dealing with cleaners or any of the maintenance issues that come up. So a company like us that takes all of that off their shoulders, that's how you can see really quickly, it's a win-win scenario. Okay, so we just simply said, look, if you simply agree to pay for the furnishings up front to get this place staged and ready to go, we can help you significantly increase your income on this property compared to what you would get by just simply renting it to a long-term tenant. Let's dive into some of the numbers on this particular property. Now, this is a little bit different, right? So on our basement suite here, we're on track to maybe do, I don't know, 28 grand on it this year, something like that. This property, as you can tell, as it's much higher end, we're starting to see, very significant numbers from a revenue standpoint come through. Okay. So as you can see here, when I dive into the, we don't have a lease on this property. Okay. So there is no overhead that we're essentially taking on here. All that's happening is we are splitting on the amount of profit that we are generating for the homeowner so that they're able to increase their income, but it's a way for us to increase our portfolio without taking on any risk.
So essentially, we signed a piece of paper to then make profit in month one, which is pretty incredible. So this has just completely changed the model of how we can grow and scale, because it's how many pieces of paper of management deals can you sign until you hit your income goal? Okay. So that just takes the scalability of this huge when you don't have any, financial income and risk coming into your business at this point.
So you can take a look here. So far on the year, this property has generated for our portfolio personally around $20,000. Now, you can take a look, like the month of August, obviously one of the best months of the year, we did almost $20,000 in revenue on this property. And on a property that we did not own or control, our business took $4,200 in income. So $4,200 in income on something we have zero financial investment in, it's
not bad. Depending on how much time you put in. What would you estimate in the month of August you dedicated towards time commitment in this?
Well, we actually had, in this property in particular, we had a longer term guest booked. So
let's say zero. Like this one had a long-term tenant, like guests actually stay at the property for that month of August. So maybe 5 minutes starting at the initial booking.
A lot of this gets handled by our team now. So us personally, very little to almost no time, but from the team, I can't imagine it took them that long to oversee this. Maybe there was a few questions that came in, maybe there was a few inquiries, of simple requests, but it didn't take a lot of time, I'll tell you right now. So, and
that's why we want to set it up with the right team members, making sure you have, coverage for messaging, coverage for the cleans, coverage for the handyman, having, a channel manager, the softwares, all those little details. So you can have bookings come in like this, that create, $4,000 a month, potentially. And then of our portfolio where we've been able to grow and scale it, we are now at 50 properties. So we just showed you 2 properties. One is rental arbitrage, one is a partnership. We are now at 50. So you can just see the exponential growth of this and where we've even taken it within the last 3-4 years of our business.
So
Now,
if that's
just to be clear, people can do this on their own. You did it on your own. You had full-time jobs. You've essentially architected this from scratch, which took a considerable amount of your time and effort, building something that you feel can be replicated by a lot of different personality types, a lot of different starting points, a lot of different financial circumstances. And that's what you're ultimately selling. So what you're selling is the shortcut. You don't necessarily want people who are looking for hand-holding to go out and have to go through all the painstaking effort that you did to sort of create this, and you're giving away the shortcuts for the price of the tuition of your membership. And like I said, right now, the price of that tuition is just under 10K. That's the discounted price. That's considerably down from your retail price. And you do that because of our relationship for the past couple of years. We've helped each other a lot, and we really are grateful to you for that. Obviously, prices can't stay where they are forever as long as you keep enhancing the quality of the service. I think you're talking about going from the 4-month membership to maybe even a longer membership term. So there's a lot that's going to be coming with those price increases. Do you grandfather people in if they're getting in early and there are enhancements? Do you include those enhancements to people that were to sign up, say, before the end of the year?
We would, yeah, 100%. But I mean, coming into 2023, a lot has changed in our industry. There's been a number of updates that are really impactful for not only the way that we're managing our own business, but ways we're guiding and directing not only current students, but future students that are coming in on how they can take best advantage of the opportunity that's right in front of us here. So if this is something
real quickly, because I guess one of the other big things that jumps out at me as a possible red flag or an obstacle that would be difficult for people to get around is, what if there are short-term rental restrictions in my area, right? But I like the model. I want to start a partnership or arbitrage business. Is this something that we could do remotely? Now, I'm speaking for myself personally here. I am currently doing it remotely. So I'm personally having success, and I can answer the question for myself, but are you finding that people really have to live in a location that they're friendly towards short-term rentals, or can people realistically still build this business without necessarily having to be there on site?
Yeah, good question, Matt. And honestly, this is even right at the beginning of this video, we talked about looking at the short-term rental regulations in your area, knowing them. That's for any market that you're applying to go into. You want to be playing in the right sandbox, knowing the regulations. You don't want to build your business off of a foundation of sand. You want to make sure you're doing it correct, because it is a business and it does take time, and you don't want it to be shut down so quickly without knowing those regulations. And this is huge with our students. A lot of our students will not actually start in their own backyard because of the regulations. You know, like for instance, in California, it can be really restrictive. Even Florida can be restrictive. It depends on the area, and making sure that you understand what kind of short-term rentals you're actually setting up, and making sure that it's okay to do that area and it's the most profitable. So lots of, even in our own business, we're in 3 different markets. We're in markets that, you know, we don't live in, and different, you can set this up in different countries. We've had students do that as well, set up in Mexico, set up in Europe. As long as you have, just as what we've shown in this video, team members, making sure you've set that up correctly, making sure you have the right software, everything that we show, if you have that in that market, you can be successful. And that's what our students are doing time and time again.
And you're willing to give away all of this inside the program, correct? All the resources you can possibly find that would benefit their growth and development are included inside the membership agreement.
Yeah, I mean, my hope and intent is, you know, based on the video we made here today, folks would be able to, you know, if they simply wanted to, you know, go out and do it themselves and, you know, kind of, you know, do the self-directed path, that would give them a high level idea of what's going to be required if they decided that this was a good fit for them. For folks that want to have the shortcuts and not, you know, step through all of the landmines and, you know, relatively painful situations at times that we've had to go through in order to figure this stuff out, that's essentially what we're offering in our 4-month BNB Bootcamp coaching program. So for anyone that's interested, for anyone that wants to not have next year be like, you know, this last year, they want to take advantage and finally get themselves to a place where they have control over their income, control over their financial future, please reach out to us at BNB Bootcamp at vipfinancialeducation.com. Either ourselves or someone on our team will get in touch to have a call. We'll have a very open discussion. We'll see if we're a good fit for one another. And, you know, you can decide whether or not this is going to be something that you can use for the next number of years, next number of for the next forever, potentially, as a way to significantly improve your financial state.
And one of the things I like to point out here is this is just sort of step one towards investing into the long-term net worth assets that you should be acquiring. I agree with you. I think long-term rentals, real estate investing in general is more of a long-term solution than it is a short-term. I've never invested in long-term rental real estate and felt the needle move. In fact, there are days where I wonder, is this making me broke? It's not until 10, 15, 20 years down the road where I say, okay, now I get it. And it begins to pay off. But I've never rented a catamaran in Greece because of my long-term rentals. You have to have a significant number of properties in most cases before that can happen. I do know a very small few that have, but the reality is, in as many years as I've been in the real estate investing world and surrounded by the communities, there's just not a large number of people that ever accomplish that. So I think this is a great short-term net cash flow solution that then, look, you take 50 properties that are performing as well as either one of those two that you have, and you're left with $50, $75, $100,000 at the end of each month in net cash flow after all of your expenses are paid. It becomes a different problem. The problem then becomes, well, what do we do with all this money? And then you can go out and acquire your own rental real estate. It's not that we're saying you shouldn't be buying and owning your own. It's that solve the short-term net cash flow equation before you acquire, and you'll find the buy and hold process of real estate investing is so much easier, so much safer. You don't feel like you're pinching every single penny in order to just get by each month. You have a lot of leeway and safety nets in place if a tenant is not paying on time, if there's damage that's unexpected, you have vacancies that pop up, you can handle it, you can absorb it. A lot larger down payments, better cash flow rates. There's just so many reasons to get the short-term cash flow solutions in place first, and then worry about investing into your own properties down the road. So this, to me, again, is by far the single most exciting short-term net cash flow solution that I've personally found, with little to no money out of pocket, with all this upside potential. And we're going to continue to bring people on the channel that share their examples. I'm going to see if I can't get the individual that we talked about at the top of the show on here to share his story and maybe give us some additional detail behind what he's accomplished in the last 19 months. And we'll come on and talk more about what we've done too. It's very exciting. I'm living proof. Like I said, by the end of next year, I fully intend on pulling out over $1 million myself personally in profits that will be my personal distributions. And I couldn't be more happy with you guys. So thank you again. Anybody that's listening, if you do want to find out if this is a good fit for you, one last time, it's BNB Bootcamp at VIPfinancialeducation.com. That'll be in the description below. Check out the other videos that are down there too that showcase more examples of what Michael and Katrina have accomplished, not just for themselves, but with other folks also. And until we see you on the next video, guys, thank you again so much. Congratulations on your little baby there. Such a little princess. And obviously being born into a pretty good life. We can tell that already. So I'm sure she'll be more than spoiled. But thank you again, guys. I'm really happy to have you here again. And until next time, everybody, make it a great day and keep on cash flowing. Take care.